When we're taught about why wars start, the reasons usually sound pretty familiar. We hear about aggressive dictators taking power, deep ideological disagreements, or tense political negotiations that fall apart. We're told countries fight when they run out of other options. But look at what actually happens when a modern conflict breaks out. A single bomb vaporizes millions of dollars in infrastructure in a fraction of a second. Roads, bridges, hospitals, and homes, decades as public wealth, are erased almost instantly. This creates a massive paradox. If war objectively destroys wealth and wrecks national economies, why does it keep happening? If everyone loses, why do we keep doing it? The answer is that not everyone loses. When you strip away the politics, war operates as a highly specialized financial system. It is a global industry explicitly designed to generate revenue. To understand global conflict, you have to stop looking strictly at the battlefield. You have to look at the balance sheet and ask one simple question: who is actually getting paid? It starts with the military-industrial complex. Companies in the United States, Russia, and Europe build weapons, from rifles to missiles to entire assembly lines of fighter jets. They sell billions of dollars of this equipment to countries actively engaged in conflict. The bigger the fight, the higher the sales volume. But the revenue stream extends far beyond the hardware. Today, private companies are hired to do jobs that national armies used to handle. These private military contractors are paid massive sums by governments to guard facilities, train local forces, and operate directly in combat zones. Then you have the natural resource sector. Wars frequently break out in regions rich with valuable commodities like oil, minerals, or diamonds. When a government collapses or a region falls into chaos, extraction companies can swoop in, taking advantage of the lack of regulation to secure extremely cheap access to those resources. For these industries, destroying a nation's infrastructure creates demand for their services. The devastation is the mechanism required to generate their revenue. So, where does the money to pay these corporations come from? Governments finance these massive defense contracts by issuing war bonds to the public, raising domestic taxes, and taking on high levels of national debt that taxpayers will be paying off for decades. You'll often hear people claim that war is good for the economy because it creates factory jobs. While it's true that a specific sector gets hired to make bombs or uniforms, the broader national economy takes a massive hit. You are spending billions on goods designed exclusively to be blown up, rather than investing that capital into schools, housing, or hospitals. We can see this domestic impact on this historical ration book. During massive conflicts, governments had to limit what citizens could buy, instituting strict rationing on basics like food, gasoline, and even clothing, just to keep the military funded. The reality is that war doesn't create widespread domestic prosperity. It functions as a direct transfer of wealth, pulling money straight out of the public taxpayer's pocket and handing it to private defense contractors. There is an even deeper disparity when you map out where these weapons are made versus where they are used. The wealthy nations manufacturing and exporting the majority of the world's arms rarely experience the violence on their own soil. This chart highlights the true cost of that dynamic. In a major arms exporting country like the United States, you might see around 15 child deaths per day from various causes. But in importing nations actively caught in war, places like Sierra Leone or Afghanistan, that number skyrockets to over 1,000 or even 2,000 children dying every single day. The global flood of cheap, light weapons directly fuels one of the darkest aspects of modern conflict: the exploitation of child soldiers. Armed groups deliberately target kids who are poor, hungry, or separated from their families. Because modern assault rifles are so simple to operate, a child can be trained to shoot one in about 40 minutes. And as we can see stamped right into the metal of this rifle recovered from a conflict zone, these weapons are actively supplied by defense manufacturers in wealthy countries, eventually ending up in places like Colombia, Uganda, and Myanmar. The billions of dollars in defense contractor bank accounts are ultimately paid for by the stolen childhoods and lost lives of kids in developing nations. You might wonder why laws don't just stop this. It's because the war economy is a closed systemic loop. Defense companies take their massive profits and hire lobbyists. Those lobbyists pressure politicians to maintain high military budgets and approve overseas weapons sales. Even when strict laws are passed to protect human rights, they routinely fail against this financial pressure. Take the United States Child Soldiers Prevention Act. It's a law explicitly designed to block weapons sales to countries known to force children into combat. This animated graphic shows how that law is actually treated in practice. Consecutive presidents have actively waived the Child Soldiers Prevention Act over 160 times. That regulatory failure has allowed billions of dollars in weapons to continue flowing right into those conflict zones. But here is the empowering reality. War is a choice. The vast majority of international disagreements do not end in violence. Countries routinely talk, compromise, and find diplomatic solutions. And that means citizens, even kids, have the power to disrupt this economy. You can challenge pro-war rhetoric, support peace organizations, and demand that your representatives enforce human rights laws instead of ignoring them. The business of war thrives in the dark. The absolute best way to break the cycle is by being an informed citizen who looks at every new conflict and asks, who is telling this story and who is profiting from it?